Hello, and welcome to another episode of the STEM Confidence Podcast. In this episode, I want to talk about a topic that I get asked about quite often, and that is how to structure and organize your work as a STEM professional. So, first of all, as a busy STEM professional, it is very likely that you have many projects going on at the same time. Perhaps you also have several meetings every week, some conference talks to plan, and so on. Having said that, planning is often a good place to start from, since juggling so many tasks can become quite overwhelming very fast. When it comes to planning and structuring your work, I have asked several colleagues how they do so, and the majority of the answers was that the best plan is to actually have no plan, since things happen and change so fast and no one has time to plan it. While I do agree that things often are happening very fast, I still believe that planning and structuring your work can save you many hours in the long run. So, let me explain what I mean by that. Planning and structuring your work doesn't necessarily mean creating a rigid and flexible schedule that you must adhere to at all costs. Instead, at least the way I see it, it's about setting priorities, sort of establishing a framework and being adaptable within that framework. One approach that many successful STEM professionals employ is to start with a broad outline of their goals and deadlines and breaking them down into smaller, more manageable tasks. Doing so allows for flexibility while still providing a roadmap to follow. Alright, hopefully I managed to convince you that planning and structuring your work might be a good idea, even when you have many projects going on and are not sure what will be the main outcome of all of them. Having said that, let's move to the planning tips that I have for you that actually made my life much easier. So, first of all, it is very important to know where you're going, at least approximately. This means that for every project, you should have at least a tentative roadmap with some established goals and checkpoints. There are, of course, several tools in which you could do that, like Notion, Google Calendar, Google Drive if you want to share it, and so on. It is basically a document with the title of the project that is organized per month. Within it, each month has a topic to which I dedicate a certain amount of time in order to progress in the project. As you can see, I keep it very general. Yet, it is specific enough for me to know that, for example, in February, I have to focus on data analysis rather than developing a new model. Next, what I like to do is to organize my projects into sections that you can later revisit once in a while. For example, for every project that I'm working on, I have one PowerPoint presentation where I track the progress of the project. This means that in my weekly meetings with my supervisor, I always use the same presentation and I just keep adding new information as the week passes by. Doing this helps us keep track of what was already done. Also, what I like to do is after the meeting, I write down my meeting notes in the notes section of the PowerPoint, together with some main conclusions and some next steps that are needed. All of that really helps you quantify your work and progress. Sometimes in STEM fields, we feel that we didn't do anything if there was no progress of the project. But when you see a quantitative representation of your work that way, it is very hard to enter the famous rabbit hole of I haven't achieved anything this week. Alright, so tip number 3 is one that I cannot stress enough. Tip number 3 is to pretty plot your most important results. That way, you have it ready for the next meeting or conference and you don't have to go over all the code to replot the result. Because when this happens, it is a nightmare to try to find that specific plot in your code. And please trust me with this one, and pretty plot all of your results. You can even design a template and import it at the beginning of your code so that all of your plots have the same design, with readable labels and proper legend. Next, let's move on to tip number 4. So, tip number 4 is to revisit your plan every week. I know that no one likes to plan the week ahead, but this is how I do it, and I promise it will take no more than 5 minutes. First, I like to take a look at what was the progress that I made in the projects the previous week. I suggest you plan the week on Friday afternoon. It is one last 10-minute push that will make things much clearer on Monday morning, believe me. And the final tip I have for you is to allow for flexibility in your plan. Data projects are often very unpredictable, which means that we rarely have a very tangible result in mind. Moreover, the roadmap to actually reach a given result often changes a lot, so it is important to be very flexible with this. Okay, but you might ask, what does it mean to be flexible? In my opinion, this means that in your plan, you actually plan the possible roadblocks. In practice, this means that you allow plenty of time for your steps to take and you avoid to rush by any means. Alright, I hope you find these tips useful and that you will apply them in your next project. And to wrap up, I want to give you one final remark. Remember that a good plan is one that has the right mix of organization and flexibility. So be gentle and allow yourself the freedom to adjust as needed. Happy planning and best of luck with your future endeavors. Thank you for listening, and until next time. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you are ready to elevate your communication skills and transform your data into valuable insights, schedule a free discovery call on the link in the description.